the moon. Again in this picture, the sunlight's on the left hand side. Now if we look initially at the full moon, bearing in mind that the sun is much, much bigger than both Earth and the planets, if we think about the sunlight coming across, it will hit the moon and be reflected to Earth. Now for the full moon, all of the moon will reflect the sunlight back to Earth. Let's look at the new moon then. What happens when the sun rays come in? Well, they hit the moon and are reflected back in the direction of the sun. They're not bounced towards Earth at all, so all of the sun's rays are reflected back to the sun away from Earth. This is why we can't see the new moon. Even though it's still in the sky, we can't see it. The full moon, sun's rays come in and all are reflected back to Earth. For the different phases of the moon then, there's partial reflection of the sun's rays. Let's have a look more closely then. The new moon still exists, but we can't see it as the rays are reflected back to the sun rather than to us on Earth. The crescent moon then. This has moved into a different position in the orbit, and some of the moon will be able to reflect the sun's rays back to us on Earth due to its position relative to the sun and Earth. When it continues on around its orbit a bit further, we can see we find the half moon, where over half of the moon is able to reflect the sun's rays and the other half doesn't. Then move right on round to the far side, and in this position the full moon is visible to us on Earth as all the sun's rays are reflected from every part of the moon to us here on Earth. In the next phase, when it moves further round the pathway, this is the gibbous moon, where now only some of the sun's rays are reflected back to us and some of the moon is in shadow. The half moon is where the moon has moved further round in its pathway and the other half of the moon is now reflecting to Earth and this half is in shadow. And finally, last phase is the crescent moon, where only a tiny crescent of the moon reflects the sun onto Earth. Now let's look back at the diagram again so we understand that. So we have the sun on the left. Furthest away from the sun, directly horizontally, in this diagram is the full moon. All the rays from the sun come across the full moon and all are reflected back to Earth. For the new moon, all the rays that hit the sun, or hit the moon rather, are reflected back to the sun and none of them are reflected to the Earth. And in the phases in between, we can see that varying parts of the sunlight are reflected to Earth.